real gold and glory of our generation will be given to a newly emerging kind of person. A person who is truly interested in change and is willing to take more risks with their career and with their lives, betting on technologies whose availability and whose utility are uncertain. You need to be clear in yourself to survive the coming period, really the period that we're already in of thought chaos, because it will make you question your own perception, your own awareness, your own presence, your own sense of reality, what is natural, what is true, and what is simply part of our mass psychosis. People all over the world are distracted by all forms of media, and it reflects in our conversations, in our activities, in our habits, in our thoughts, and the causes and concerns that we choose to highlight in our lives and in our conversation. You stand at the end of a chasm that is growing wider and wider every day. We are living through the greatest wealth transfer period in the history of the world and of our people, ever. As the global market teeters at the precipice of Keynesian financial collapse, there is little time left to make sure that you and your dynasty, your legacy, your family are well off. This market inefficiency is an opportunity for all of us. All wealth transfer markets happen in contexts of rapid development. It's money on the table for anyone who's actually sharp and willing to take these risks. Either you make it big and you've set your bloodline up for generations and generations of success, or you could get pushed out by players who are willing to actually do it as it comes to form, to reality. The reason why I love crypto so much is because crypto is the greatest wealth transfer opportunity accessible to the common man in history and in today's age. We can make dynasties in this generation, and we can change not only our own lives, but the lives of our entire bloodline. You need to wake up. Cryptocurrency has achieved anarcho-capitalism by force and all the wealth that comes from that. But it's not about money. It's about resistance against a state, resistance against an artificial government who wants to play God, but clearly throughout history has shown time and time again that it will never be capable of that. More boons will follow, and with it, more counter signaling from the powers that be. What do I mean by counter signaling? I mean propaganda. You need to become immune to propaganda. The state intends to reduce their populations into slave cattle, and you will either belong to the aristocracy or into the servant class. Point blank, period. There will be no more middle class, whether you like it or not. This is the direction that the global society is heading into. This is what the contemporary culture war comes down to. The state is highly interested in extinguishing tech-enabled anarchist freedoms because it undermines their stranglehold on the propaganda complex. It undermines their stranglehold on the minds of the people. If the state no longer is the largest influencing force on the minds of their citizens, then that means that at any point, at any time, an insurrection could arise from within their own borders, from within their own lands, from within their own population. This cannot happen because these mental chains that these states, that these governments place on their population are the only way to hold and maintain power and order in democracy. Higher education is nothing but a bubble supplied by subsidized debt. You could go to school for all of those years, and you could simply be outperformed by somebody who knows industry and goes into a business, or somebody who's sharp and very risk tolerant and willing to invest in highly speculative markets. Without being propped up by the government, universities would be bankrupt due to the inefficiency of higher academia being rerouted into actual career training. Grade inflation, class size inflation, affirmative action, and foreign student imports have all worked to eliminate the prestige and qualifying standards universities developed over the last half century. And now, because of this, Academia is pretty much a joke. Recruiters do not care about your degree. You can be running around with a master's degree and working an entry level job. You could have gone to university for 4 years, 6 years, and you could be stuck in a dead end career that isn't even enough to sustain the life of yourself, let alone actually building a family without you and maybe your spouse as well needing to have multiple jobs. Your same student loan, if you took and placed in an index fund, actually outperforms your degree in terms of return on investment in the same amount of time. A lot of people are making a mistake right now in their lives and they are paying for it every single day. University used to be a funnel for all of the smartest minds of the generation. But now it's nearly a certainty that that's the one place you can go and you won't find any smart minds. So why waste your time in classrooms? Why waste your times on traditional guard rails? What the hell is the whole point of going to university if the end goal, which is to get into a career and make a lot of money so that you can support your family and have a dynasty, you can achieve all that without ever having to step into a classroom at all? The internet has pretty much democratized access to information, and now it really is a matter of the individual to simply go out there, not be lazy, not be slothful, and weed through the dirt and educate themselves and turn that intellect, turn all that knowledge into real wisdom and profit therefore from that. No one really learns in a university anymore. All you really do is memorize and you network. The classes are a joke. All you have to do is memorize. The most value you could ever get out of university is networking with bright minds, yet you can network on a far greater scale. You can reach a larger amount of people and you can reach specific niches of people online. So there is no reason to enter a university because a large amount of the reason why people would go to universities is because they wanted to interact with the brightest minds of their days in these subjects, in the fields, in the topics that they are passionate about. But you can do all of that effectively online as well now. The future is unevenly distributed, and you don't have to be in a physical location in order to intermingle and in order to enter the upper echelons of society. And that's why the internet is such a powerful thing. You need to start paying attention to where the world has moved, or you will be left behind because the world is now saying, I don't even need you to be physically present in order to engage with me. I just need you to be mentally and spiritually present. We are living in such a wondrous blessing of an age because this is not only a moment of information and wisdom democratization, but it's also a moment of capital creation as well and capital and wealth transfer. This is a perfect inflection for any person from any walk of life in the world. That's why I'm so passionate about crypto. That's why this has been something that has taken over my life literally since I just entered my teens, all right? When I was in high school, I never really knew what I wanted to do with myself. But the reason why I was so obsessed with crypto was because I hated the thought of wasting time. I hate the thought of wasting time on bullshit. And to me, university just felt like a scam to me. It felt like something that, you go and you do the exact same on rails bullshit and you deal with the exact same political garbage that you've been dealing with all your life. Only now you're doing it on a much grander scale. And only now they're going to be charging you a hell of a lot more to do that. For me, college is a government prep debt farm that's extracted trillions in value from the youth every single year through the use of propaganda. All right. That's all that it's been for decades, and the music is stopping now. The real future of academia and schooling will belong to the digital and physical learning networks. It's so obvious. I don't know how anybody can't see it if COVID wasn't an indication of that already. And glorified degree farms will be replaced by effective vocational schools. All right. So, schools for skills that you really do need to be there physically for. So, like being a mechanic, like being a surgeon. If you're not in one of these industries, if you're not in one of these vocations, honestly, I believe you're wasting your time if you're thinking about going to university. I know so many people who have gone to university, have gone to college, gotten a degree, and got stuck in a shitty job and then decided to go back to school and do that shit over and over again. And I've watched them waste 8 to 10 years of their life now and tons of money, and they're still playing this Russian roulette game. Normies say we are gamblers, but they like to gamble their lives away. They're just killing time, killing themselves, and killing their budget, and they're not seeing any progress for that. If you aren't aggressively making make it plays in this lifetime, if you aren't being courageous, if you aren't being bold, then I don't believe you're going to make it. If you're content just like working a job, a 9 to 5 for somebody else, being somebody's little bitch boy, or in school towards being somebody's little bitch boy, then you are never going to make it. Wasting your time away in school for a bullshit degree or selling your personal time and labor for money instead of maximizing exposure to valuable equity, instead of building assets in order to generate income for you, is an immense opportunity cost that you can't afford to leave on the table. If you are someone who is risk averse, then you just have to accept that you will be cut off from the aristocracy unless you're already there, because you need to have risk in order to generate large amounts of capital. Let's be real here. That's why we're all in crypto, because we're willing to take large risks in order to generate a lot of capital with a little amount of capital. Next, there is no doubt that there is a wealth gap, and every single year the wealth gap grows. One thing I hate is I hate people who want to talk about metrics and moan about numbers and statistics every freaking day. These metrics and numbers, they happen whether we want them to or not. The only thing that we can control is how we react as an individual, and then how we organize ourselves as a community and society to counteract against that. So bitching and moaning about these numbers won't do anything to help you. Only action will. And it's plain enough to see, even when you do want to bring statistics and these numbers into the picture, that the wealth gap is growing at an insane rate and wages simply are not catching up to that. I've also talked about CBDCs on this podcast before, and I was going crazy talking about CBDCs because it's apparent to everybody that the Canadian dollar, that the US dollar, that the yuan, whatever fiat form of money that you're referring to is simply going to always hyperinflate. That's why many people even choose to keep their real wealth, their real assets in stuff like gold or in real estate or in other vehicles that actually retain their value or even grow. What does it really mean to make $50,000 a year? All right. What does it really mean to make $100,000 a year? What does it really mean to make $150,000 a year if your purchasing power is essentially the same? You're seeing people making more money on paper, but in reality, their purchasing power is either equivalent or even lesser than it was several years ago when they were making less money dollar-wise. The reason why I'm so obsessed with crypto, the reason why I keep insisting that I want my viewers to really take risks, to be fearless, to be bold, and to explore and to find different ways to generate wealth from crypto and online is because I think that if you don't, then you're playing a zero-sum game. A lot of my viewers, I think they're really good people. I think they're genuinely good people. I think they have good intentions, good hearts. Struggle is common in anybody's life. We all deal with these things. We all have these issues. But the thing is, we struggle for all our lives, but we revel in it. We never actually make an attempt to change. We're doing these same things day in and day out, and then we pray to God or whatever belief system you follow, expecting some form of change to happen. But it doesn't. It simply doesn't happen because we haven't changed our input in order to get a different output. Securing and maintaining wealth is not complicated. It's a matter of the heart and soul. You need to be clear in yourself and who you are. Most people, they say they want money, but in reality, their actions say otherwise. Most people are allergic to money. I believe that they subconsciously fumble their wealth intentionally because they know that they don't deserve it or don't believe that they do. Wealth comes to the virtuous. Wealth always seems, in my experience, to come in windfalls. You have to maximize your exposure to it. And it comes down to a matter of positioning yourself so that you can be in the right place at the right time when wealth does fall from the sky. So, we make our investments, we place our baskets in order to catch them. And you must position yourself by maximizing your luck, maximizing opportunity exposure, maximizing risk forwardness, and leveraging your existing capital. Whenever anybody copes about luck, I want you to remember that luck can be optimized. If there's a dumb luck, then there's also smart luck. All right. Think of that whole stupid mid curve chart that everybody's posting constantly these days. I think that chart is very real. Like there's some real magic to some of these memes, honestly. Luck is like a stat in a video game that you can farm, and you can get bonus multipliers to max out rewards when Lady Luck does hit. Maintaining wealth simply comes from taking those assets that you've secured and then putting them in, risk off assets versus something like crypto, which is more capital deployment. So placing it into something like Aave in order to generate interest or into houses, et cetera, et cetera. My whole point here, though, is that if you want to make it, if you want to survive through this wealth transfer and you want to be the one on the side of the aristocracy, then I believe you have to be bold. You have to be strong. You can't survive through cowardliness and miserliness. You must have a clear and courageous mind to survive. Wealth is the right of the virtuous. I shit you not. I shit you not. Wealth is the right of the virtuous, and wealth is inherently good. Wealth is not inherently neutral, it's inherently good. Karma is real at every level, and all presumptions are manifested, and you receive from the world what you give to it. You must escape the spiritual poverty of scarcity by embracing a mindset of abundance, regardless of your real circumstances. And you do this because you know that all types of wealth will follow. And I don't mean like you know it, like you memorized it. I mean, you like believe it from your heart of hearts, your soul of souls. People suffer for their sins and they are in living hells of their own creation. Some people, yes, are meant to be poor. It's part of their destiny. But most people, most of God's people are not. And they have the intellect to escape it. I don't think it's a matter of intelligence, but instead we wallow in our sins of despondency and we enjoy despairing day in and day out. We enjoy the distractions, we enjoy the flavors of insecurity and the many things that we do in order to cover it up and numb ourselves from it. So even if you do know what is right, if you don't take action to break the cycle of your bad habits, then you can never act on what you know to be true. Instead of resolving the problems in their lives, I find a lot of people, instead of resolving their problems in their life, and I'm not referring to anybody in my subscriber base, I'm just speaking in general here. I'm speaking both from the heart, but I'm also speaking from other thought leaders as well who have been influencing me. Instead of resolving the problems in their life, preventing them from the success they feel they're owed, they try to externalize the blame because they're weak and it takes courage to blame yourself rather than coping and blaming somebody else. In this way, they're not simply materially poor, but you're also someone who's spiritually poor as well if you do this. Wealth comes to those who deserve it, like a metal to a magnet, and it escapes the sinful like oil and water. That's why, even though people say, oh, it's too late to make it, it's never too late to make it. You simply have to have a virtuous mindset and place your actions behind it, and wealth will literally be chasing you, whether you want it or not. No matter how many times you miss it, eventually it's going to come get you. Just like death comes to get us, just like the sun rises and falls. The future belongs to those who are willing to take risks, who are willing to network and prioritize self education and self empowerment. Virtue is the key to success in a world plagued by sin. You must be virtuous to survive when it seems like the entire world is living in hell. Virtue is a program for living well, formalized for low time preference, so it's the quickest path to success. It's also the long term path of maintaining success. And it's a traditional solution against the cognitive biases of human irrationality and the many different dharmas and theories that we come up with in the different ages and times of our people. Efficacy and virtue is timeless. Virtue is also a self manifesting external signal to the network. By being virtuous, others will know that you will succeed and others will actively support you. While you also naturally curate out the non virtuous in your life, Your network will grow and expand and become more virtuous along with the development of your character. So this means exponential growth as well. I don't want you to just get exponential growth in your portfolios. I want you to level up spiritually, relationship wise, mentally. I want you to level up in every single aspect of your life. And virtue will always bring more people who want to level up as well into your life. I live in Canada. I've told you guys this before, but in Canada and in the Western world, really, we've adopted this like strange and hedonistic morality. And I feel like this morality has been intentionally pushed by the government and has led to a crisis of virtue in their people because people who lack virtue are much easier to control. I believe that this is an opportunity for you as success comes very easily to the virtuous. You just need to be clear in yourself to survive. You have to have the courage to cut out your own path and go against the grain and even separate yourself from your loved ones and people in your life who you care about who will try to drag you down for trying to do so, for trying to elevate yourself. You have to be stronger than your circumstance. You have to be stronger than them and you have to be stronger than these spirits. This is the worst time to get distracted, and there is no time. I know a lot of people may think I'm crazy for actually going full time YouTube at 888 subscribers when I don't even have monetization turned on yet. But I think this is the perfect time. I think that we are in an inflection point. All right. And I think that this is the perfect time to take advantage of this opportunity, especially in preseason before the real bull market. Because let's be real, as long as the halving hasn't happened, the bull market has not started. But the reason why I talk about God and faith so much in my podcast isn't because I'm someone who's religious. Rather, it's because I believe that God and faith provides a perfect foundation and perfect solution to guiding your life. I don't mean in terms of religious rules in order to control you and keep you chained to a moral authority. I mean more so as a set of rules that you would follow, just as if you were the citizen of any other country or kingdom. All right. Just like how when you enter Canada, you are subject to the laws of Canada. I believe that I myself am a citizen of the kingdom of heaven and I am subject to the laws of heaven. And that's why I follow that. I don't follow any form of religious belief. Let's look at Catholicism, for instance. All right. So, Catholicism points out the fact that gluttony is bad, lust is bad, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. The seven deadly sins. Everybody knows these. People want to deny the seven deadly sins, but if you look around in your life, anybody who actively indulges in these sins and these actions are punished for it actively in their lives or in the lives of their children. Think of your enemies, think of the failures you know in life, and actually spend some time observing them and their behaviors. Observe what comes out of their mouth, observe the stories they build around themselves, and then the actions that they create in order to act out these stories in their real life. It always produces negative effects and it never helps them or anybody else who involves themselves with them. That's why I'm saying there's value in a virtuous character. Because when you eliminate sin from your life, you eliminate these pitfalls and traps that you actually set up and curse yourself with. I haven't met a single person who has done the right thing and regretted it, but I've met so many people who have lied, cheated, stolen, killed, raped, and even more, and have always suffered the consequences of their actions. Karma is very real, and our actions do shape our future. We can decide our own destinies, but until we decide to do something different, we can never expect a different destiny than the ones that our current actions have brought us today. Everything you do today, every decision you make every day, reverberates infinitely in your immortal soul. It persists throughout your entire bloodline. The soul that you have inherited from your ancestors and that your descendants will inherit from you. The soul that you've inherited from all your ancestors who all watch over you, who've paid spiritually in their lives in order to influence the fortune in yours. If you choose to be a waste man, if you choose to be a loser, if you choose to be a sinful piece of shit today, You curse not just your own life, but 1,000 lives both before and after you. Those are the words of Charlotte Fang. If you want to know the future, you can actively see 1,000 years in front of you. And I'm going to explain how this is possible. Habits are like a riverbed that guides the direction of fate as it flows through an individual. It doesn't nudge in any direction except deeper and deeper and deeper into the direction that your actions take you. This is how you can be so sure of anybody's future. You simply extrapolate the consequences of the current habits, lifestyles, and conditions. Just like how if you would see a youth who engages in a certain sport since their infancy and they do it day in, day out every day, you can highly expect to see that they will be a world-class athlete in the future. Just like if you see someone study and devote themselves to a certain field, you can expect them to perform well in that field. You can look at anyone and calculate their future trajectory based on the path that they follow today. It's rare to meet someone in their 20s who actually actively engages in a serious career. People in their 20s today, they have little industriousness, willpower, or agency. And I'm saying this as someone who is in their 20s. This is a symptom of their education and failed spirituality because their understanding of the process of future making is foggy and they've lost access into tapping into their God-given motivations, their purpose, their reason for being here at this time on the planet. They're distracted and they're confused, but the path can be made clear to anybody who has the will to actually follow it. People are often asked where they see themselves in 5 years, but that only gets you an answer on where they would like to be, not where they're going. If you were to ask that question, it would be better to frame it. If you continue to live as you live today, if you continue to do what you're doing right now, where will it take you in 5 years? Your future is a condition of your current activities. And most often, the unfortunate answer is your current actions, what you're doing today, how you live today is just going to keep you in the exact same place you are today. It won't elevate you, it'll just stagnate you perpetually, indefinitely. All right. That is the devil himself at work. The devil's biggest motivation is not to kill you. Because if the devil kills you, you can still be a problem for him spiritually. The devil's most effective work is to waste your time, is to make you spend your time doing nothing at all and living in complete stagnation. Our futures do and can change, and we can change our futures into whatever we desire. All right. Our futures don't change slowly, but suddenly. I am a living testimony of that. Everyone's future has inflection points, not just one, several. These inflection points are interventions of fate that come crashing down like a waterfall, and our future is permanently adjusted onto a new trajectory. You can always extrapolate, so you can always predict anybody's future trajectory from their current conditions, all the way up to their inflection points. Most people interpret these moments of fate as something aside from their agency, unrelated to their past actions and the way that they live their life. But it's in fact the opposite. These key life points are where your agency to act with virtue or not factors in most essentially, both actively and passively. These moments come down to two forms: a test of fate or a karmic reward or retribution, depending on which side of the karmic pendulum you swing on. The latter is a product of your passive past agency in your everyday virtuous actions or lack thereof. Luckiness is, of course, not a purely random condition. Your karma is a consequence of your decision making, because how you live is a needle you push against the realities of everything else you interact with in the world. And this shapes the character and degree of your exposure to any significant moment that might be described as chance or luck. The former demands active present agency. All right, so a test of fate demands active present agency to prove yourself and your virtue in a challenge. And just as you can predict someone's future based on their current trajectory, you can also estimate their successes or failures in these moments of fate based on their current virtue. Because virtue is a habit, and habits are ever ingraining. Rewards always follow hardship. I never want you to think otherwise. And challenges of fate follow success. Your right action in these challenges decide the future that you unlock. If you've made it this far, I'd like to thank you for listening. Please check out the description. It has several free airdrops as well as links to Stake Sync. All your efforts help to support the podcast and keep the content coming. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Thank you. We are tested throughout life, but there are three universal tests everyone must enter in their life: the coming of age, marriage or the lack thereof, and death. Marriage is a test, but it's a union as old as time, literally. People are rarely asked where they will be in 20 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. Is it really wise to think in a matter of a 5-year time frame? If it is, you won't be in the exact same place in the next century, but you'll be in a deep abyss. If your current actions, if the way you live today can only sustain you for 5 years, can only make you prosper for the next 5 years, then where would it place you if you kept repeating the same actions in 20 years? And if it isn't taking you further, then why are you doing it on a 5-year timescale? Why are you doing it on a 10-year timescale? People barely even think in a 5-year perspective in the first place, but now put 20 years in front of them. The answer for anyone well-adjusted is in 20 years, they hope to at least have a family, at least have a foundation. But what kind of spouse are you going to have? What type of children are you going to have? Everybody says it's an unknown, but it's not random. Your children are a product of the spouse that you select, the wife or the husband that you select, and your spouse is a product of your actions and choices today. If you want a quality spouse, you can have that. You can have that. I genuinely believe you can. But you have to take the actions and choices that are going to lead you to those circles, those networks, where those quality people, where your quality spouse can be found and resides and is also looking for a quality spouse as well. If you choose to be a cringe, lazy loser, bum today, then you will get a spouse deserving of such tomorrow. If you choose to be a sinful, spineless, sissy, non-virtuous infidel, then you will get a spouse deserving exactly of such that. This is what I mean when I say the reality of spirituality will hit you hard when you meet your children. The direct product of your selection and as a direct product of your virtue and karma. If you continue to live as you do today, what kind of spouse will you have tomorrow? What house will you give them? What grade and quality of descendant will you produce? What spouse will your kids obtain? And what would their children be like in 100 years? What kind of future have you laid out for them? Have you set up a legacy? Have you set up a dynasty that will span for your children's children? If you continue to live as you do today, where will it take your dynasty in 1,000 years? You need to be thinking on these terms because then you can really fully actualize your purpose and you can truly tap into those God-given abilities and passions that you have and that are waiting to be manifest inside of you. The recognition of life after death is the fundamental distinction that makes man superior to an animal. Many exist today and they act like animals, all right? They can barely get over the hurdle of distraction. They're like a bunch of overfed mice in a lab cage, and the government is the one observing them and keeping them fed and keeping them on their little rails in their little mouse traps. They fail to even achieve basic biology, and they don't live like a higher species. They don't live like real men and women. They live like animals in human skin, to the point where it's actually an achievement when somebody is able to get married and actually remain in a stable marriage. How is a stable marriage rare now when amongst our ancestors it was a common thing? The basis of nature, the basis of life is reproduction. Not reproduction through addition, but through multiplication. But dynasty is reproduction extrapolated. Dynasty is life after death. You have to see beyond the present and into the future. Because remember, your soul is inherited and will be passed on. You exist here as a product of every decision made by each and every one of your ancestors. And I want you to thank and honor and respect them for it. And every decision you make today will reverberate infinitely through your soul as you pass your soul on to the next. The strange doom, gloom, and despair that sings amongst this age, despite us being in the most prosperous and wealthy age ever in the history of mankind, is due to losing track of the natural and obvious goal of dynasty and legacy. It is the only goal in which to orient yourself. It's the only immortality. People select their partners for the most banal and like animalistic reasons is because they vibe or they're sexually compatible or they just clicked. But as a woman, you need to be thinking very seriously if the man you choose can genuinely support and maintain a prosperous family for your children and your children's children. And as a man, you need to be thinking very seriously if the woman can truly nurture your children and allow your family to prosper and grow, if she can achieve her responsibilities in her role as a wife and as a mother and as the caretaker of your household. You need to be thinking very seriously if they are oriented toward this realistic future in collaboration with you. And notice I'm using the word realistic because I need you to truly believe this is possible, because a lot of the minds in today's age don't. And that's why we waste so much time, especially people in my age group in their 20s and in their late teens waste so much time bouncing from meaningless, pointless relationship to pointless relationship that serves no end goal or purpose or pursuit. Marriage is not a decision for life. It's a decision for thousands of years. Marriage is a decision for the entire family, the entire bloodline. And from the moment of inception, your dynasty's next trajectory is permanently set. You need to spend everything you can to prepare yourself for that type of ultimate decision. You will always be able to find someone compatible. Don't believe the press that tells you otherwise and tells you that this is a decision that must be rushed. If you want to find someone good, the best and absolute best thing you can do is make yourself good enough for someone good. That way they gravitate into your life naturally and inevitably as a result of your actions. Before the test of marriage is the coming of age. For the masculine soul, men are born imperfect creatures and rise to the challenge of excellence and become forged stronger and stronger and stronger with every challenge and hurdle they face and surpass. Women, they're the opposite. Women, they're born with everything. They're born perfect, and they can only be damaged and bruised and battered by life experiences and other people over time. Thus, for men, coming of age is not inevitable. It's something that a man has to actively work for. Otherwise, a man can grow biologically and reach adulthood, but they'll remain fundamentally immature. As a man, coming of age means, having a backbone, all right? Becoming bold, becoming courageous, internalizing the fundamental virtues that define an honorable and just and righteous man. The basic prerequisites to successfully participate in great enterprise, as well as run a stable household. So, this is both for business and for maintaining your house, your wife and children, your legacy, your dynasty, means you have to have respect, loyalty, integrity, industry, and courage in your heart and truly believe this. And by belief, I mean it comes out both through your mouth and through your actions. Inversely, for a woman, her coming of age is naturally inevitable, and it can only be damaged by toxic corruptions that are both physical or spiritual. The woman's father in a traditional household is responsible for her protection until being relieved to her spouse. And if either fails in their duties, then the damage that's caused by their impotence passes down in their dynasty. I've met many men in my life who I could say have never crossed their maturity of adolescence, and they're nothing but overgrown man children. Think of any stoner you know. Think of any guy who just runs around chasing tail all day that you know. Think of any man without ambition that just sits around playing video games, pursuing nothing with their infinite amount of time and the limitless, boundless strength that their youth gives them. Any distracted deviant, they're just as unfit for marriage as a broken woman. And they do nothing these days besides the makeup and breakup game over and over and over again. They just change the faces and appearances that they see, but they're simply interacting and intermingling with the same broken spirits. Think about the future dynasty of this broken union. Think about the many women you know in 5 year, 6 year, 10-year relationships with an aimless man with no purpose, with no intention to marry them, with no intention to set up a real future. What do they live for? What do you live for? I'm asking you, the person who's, for whatever reason, spending almost an hour actually listening to this. What do you live for? Most of these people waste their time spiraling in non marriage, long term, codependent relationships, wasting each other's youth in order to satisfy a hole in their chest that can only be filled by themselves before eventually resettling with someone else to repeat the dirty cycle all over again. The man has no career, no ambitions, no pursuits, and the woman, she is aged out and worn out and becomes physically and psychologically devastated and spiteful and bitter. Their selections for a spouse are then tarnished, and the man's weakness and the woman's trauma is passed on to whatever children they manage to produce, if they even manage to reproduce at all. They're mired in a world of distracted confusion, incapable of answering for themselves. They're set up to fail from the start. Their trajectory is purely stagnant, and when they hit the wall of fate's inflection point, you can already know that their descendants will be hurled cliffside over into the abyss. It's not just the case for these losers, though. Think about the mother who pushes her daughter to be an honors grade student, focusing entirely on school, or the father who sends his daughter to be a lawyer or a doctor. What kind of spouse will she find? What kind of mother would she make? How would her children be reared? Think about the San Francisco tech founder who exited with 8 figures but got sucked into a relationship with the first gold digging babe bunny mid tier thought to lock her sights on him. She's not from a good family, she's not smart, and she has no values. She's dirty, she's trifling, she's a hoe in today's terms, but she's easy, she's fun, and they're compatible. The consequence for his complacency is his children will be just as mid and just as valueless and lackluster as the nurturer that he chose to start a dynasty with. And the wealth that he built in his time will be simply squandered, thrown to dust. It'll probably go to dudes like me instead within a few generations from their family. What do they live for? They're misled into chasing the wrong goals because their future sight is small, or they have no future sight at all and they're simply living for today, here, and right now. They'd be lucky to be looking 5 years into the future, let alone 1,000 years. There is only one genuine point against which to orient every decision in your life, and that is your dynasty. If you do encounter the question, what do you live for? There is only one true answer, and that is dynasty. That is legacy. That is your bloodline. That is everything that you and your ancestors have lived for up to the very moment of your inception, up to the very moment that you are here hearing this right now. Pride, happiness, money earned and lost over a single lifetime is not meaningful wealth. You can't even call that wealth. It's nothing but a spiritual dead end. This is why death is the final test in life. All right. The completion of the cycle of maturity is the acceptance of death and its role in our lives, and the acceptance of it as the next stage of our lives. And the conditions with which you leave the world behind are the fulfillment of your obligations to your ancestry, and will also determine your descendants and what your descendants will have to work with in their own lifetimes. Those who fear death at the time of death, they know they messed up somewhere. They know there's regrets somewhere. And they enter the afterlife, if at all, with all that feeble doom and gloom in their soul. Death is the final test, and it's one that's meant to be overcome because death brings immense rewards. Death is supposed to be a challenge to determine your place beyond life, because life after death is in your descendants, and at death, you know what future you've given them. That's why if you've done your job properly, death should be nothing but a celebration of your time upon the earth and a celebration of all your accomplishments and achievements and what you have done for your bloodline and legacy. Your ancestors watch over you while you spend a currency that they earned in their lives in order to influence the fortune in yours. This is true materially, biologically, and spiritually, in the wealth they pass on at death, in the biological choices made in spouse selection, and in the spiritual rearing they delivered unto you, and the values, virtues, and moralities delivered in the example that they set. You are either blessed or cursed by all the decisions of each and every one of your cascading ancestors. And if you are cursed, I'm coming singing the good news, because you who is here right now can break the curse that is in your bloodline, the curse that is in your family. You can break the chain of the curse, and you can make sure that all your descendants, starting from you, are blessed upon the earth from now on. You stand facing your descendants the same as your ancestors stand facing you now. You may not be able to see them, but their actions have shaped every single aspect of who you are today. The immortal soul that you've inherited is a baton passed down from generation to generation, from forever before and into an infinite forevermore. Today, it is in your hands. Don't fumble it. Today, it is your time. Use it. Today is your chance. Don't waste it. There is a plethora of opportunities and abundance all around us every day. All you need to do is be willing to take a risk, is be willing to be courageous, and be willing to take a chance. And I promise you, wealth will chase you around whether you like it or not. And you will change the destiny of not only yourself, but generations for thousands and thousands of years to come. Thank you for listening to the XRP podcast. Thank you, Charlotte Fang, for your beautiful writings. Be well, be safe, take care. God bless you.